Hey guys, sorry about that. The sometimes technology is a little slow and lagging, but you know what? I can deal with it. So, okay. So I'm gonna talk about a little bit about my last video, and then I'm gonna talk about the actual topic that I want to discuss in this video, which you can see from the screen. So, my last video was about a certain person attacking Avmo. Oh, because of her animated content and other stuff. I seriously do not understand what's with people these days. I mean, sure, her content is sort of cringy, but you know what? I'm okay with it. Can you please? Thank you. So, this person, I don't know if this guy is a real person, because I don't know anyone who's this much of a hot mess. Because even though his videos from about him, which from his videos, he's basically just, it's almost like he's joking, but I can't. How can I believe that it's a joke when he's literally like he just seems, and just from the tone of his voice, he just seems pissed. I seriously do not understand how someone's pissed, but at the same time thinking that they're joking around. I don't think they're joking. And from their YouTube banner, they have subscribe or I'll sleep with your mother. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Are children even watching your videos? Because if they might discover your YouTube channel and might discover the banner that you have on your YouTube channel, and might think, what the hell is wrong with this man? I'm literally traumatized. And I checked just to see if other people criticized or even ranted or even harassed about Avmo's content, and there's not a lot, but there's a couple of them, which I'm basically annoyed about. So the man who I talked about in my last video actually commented on that video and said that it would be a great YouTube video idea, and today and probably even yesterday, I checked his YouTube channel, and he, you know what, I'm not even gonna say it, because I'm like, really, dude? Really? Okay, whatever. So I just deleted his comment to just my own business. It has a couple of new views, which is okay. Anyways, so like I said in my last video, my storage is it's okay, but still, it's not bad, but it's not good either. Actually, let's just ignore it. So the topic for today's video, I tried to make a TikTok about this, but I didn't have much to... Let me explain. So, Nun Massacre and its story. So, if you have heard of the story of Nun Massacre and the plot and the twist, you might know what I'm talking about. So, Nun Massacre is about the main character, Mrs McDonnell, or Miss McDonnell, or Donald? I honestly don't know, but people pronounce it as Mrs. McDonald, or Mrs. McDonald, like Donnell, Mrs. McDonnell. I honestly don't. But mostly Miss McDonnell. I can deal with it. So in the Nun Massacre definitive version, there's an there's an there's an actual intro that doesn't cut away with the with Mrs. McDonald going to the school right from her car. So from the game and the story, I'm also going to take some information from the book of Nun Massacre and the theories that people have been talking about. So, let me explain. So, Mrs. McDonnell has had a child named Janie, her daughter, and Janie was abused by Mother Apollonia in the Catholic boarding school that she went to. And in the book, it's named, Saint Cecilia. So, people also say that it's connected to Christmas Massacre, which I would believe it's true. I mean, it's possible. And in fact, it was like a real place. So, okay. So in the original game, Janie went to the school in the early 1950s. We know about this because it was also based from the Nun from 2018, and it took place in 1952. So that's the time period we're going with for the earliest story of the game, where Janie in the book is described by being 9 years old. So Janie was probably it's almost like me, where I was born in 2003 and I'm 19 in 2022. So Jane or Janie was born on 1943. No, 1943. Yeah, probably. So she was 9 years old, and it was described that she only spent in like 6 or maybe a couple of months in the St. Cecilia's boarding school, and snapped and killed everyone while being sort of the alter ego of Mother Apollonia. However, this was only in the book. So this was before the prologue in Christmas Massacre. And let me explain. So, in the book, Mrs. McDonnell is revealed to have dissociative identity disorder, where she's believed to be, where she takes on 3 or 2 alter egos: herself, Mother Apollonia, and her daughter Janie. So, if we take accountability of the game story, in the intro, when Mrs. McDonnell doesn't want to go into Janie's room, you can see Bungle the Clown, Janie's clown doll, in her bedroom. And you can see the doll in the game in Nun Massacre during the good ending. So it's believed that Mrs. McDonnell was hallucinating, and in some of the notes, some people theorize that Mrs. McDonnell abused her own daughter by being Mother Apollonia and pretending that her house was the school that she went to. However, it is a real place. So, some people, I think that from the book, let me try to say this in my own version. So, Jane, Mrs. McDonnell, went to St. Cecilia's Catholic boarding school when she was 9 years old in the early 1950s. And we definitely know about this, instead of the 1940s, which was in the book. So, I believe, well, she didn't actually murder anyone in the game, because we're not sure if it actually happened, but from Christmas. Okay, so this is going to be complicated. I can barely even speak. So, how can I say this? So, Jane spent there for like 6 months, and I think in the game, in the game, instead of Janie committing suicide, it's her doll that sort of commits suicide. Like, if it was like Janie actually committed suicide in the school. And we can see in Christmas Massacre, if it took place in the same school, it was still open. And wait, no. Janie was Miss McDonnell, and her real name is Jane. So Jane McDonnell was 9 years old in the early 1950s. She spent 6 months in the Catholic boarding school. I think in the game she left the school due to her parents finding out that something was wrong with their daughter being abused by the mother superior. And it's believed that Nun Massacre takes place in 1981 after the events of Christmas Massacre. So, okay. So Jane is in her bathtub listening to the radio, I think. But in the game, you don't hear the radio. Some people also think that Jane killed herself in the bathtub by electrocution. So, I'm guessing she put the radio in the bathtub and electrocuted herself. And she's basically in a purgatory where she's being killed by the nun, which is basically her alter ego, or the reminiscent of her guilt and trauma due to her spending the months in the boarding school being abused by the mother, and pretending that she had a daughter named Janie who was abused by the same mother who mistreated Jane. So what I can take is Jane was 9 years old in the 1950s. She was abused by Mother Apollonia in the school. She, years later, after Christmas Massacre, she committed suicide by electrocuting herself in the tub. She's now in a purgatory where she goes to the school, imagining that she has a daughter and that her daughter is sick, and she has to go to the school to get her. And she's being hunted down by a nun, which is basically Mother Apollonia, Mrs McDonnell, Janie, and the nun, and the person or character being talked about in one of Janie's notes, St. Lucy, who was killed by having her eyes gouged out, which is just like the nun in Nun Massacre, where she has her eyes gouged out and bleeding black liquid from her eye sockets. Okay, this might be confusing, but I will put it in the description just to make it more clear. But all you need to know is that Jane pretended that she had a daughter named Janie who had the same doll as her. She didn't want to go in her own room. She's basically, I think she still lives in her parents' house. She pretends that she has a daughter named Janie. She gets a letter from Mrs. Apollonia to come to the school because her daughter is sick. And in the good ending, she burns the nun, basically killing all of her sins, and she is forgiven by the doll, and she goes up to heaven, I think. This might have been difficult to say, but that's all I have for you today in this video. Sorry if this was confusing or out of touch, but it's something. Bye.